Hey everyone, so today I'm going to show you how I like to bind my right-hand Gladiator NXT EVO, now that's the base, with the SCG or Space Combat Grip in MSFS. So we should have very similar setup here, and I just booted into MSFS and I have the grip here just so you can see what I'm going to do. So first we want to go to options. Now if you plug in your controller in the game, it'll come up and ask, do you want to go and configure this? You can do that, or you can just go to controls and options, which is there. And I already have a profile. It'll say, you don't have a profile, let's create one. But in this case, I'm just going to go to Open Preset Manager, and I'll create a new preset. And I'm just going to name this, let's just name it Default. Because this is pretty basic. I don't want to go through all of the bindings. All right, so as you can see, let me zoom in a little bit here so you can see a little bit better. Right now, it's blank. That's because over here we have the filter, and this is set to just assigned. Now we're gonna have to change the filter to everything, so that's all. And now you can go and choose your inputs and do all the main things right here. You can also expand or collapse all by pressing that button. But let's go and start with some of the real basic things. So we're going to go to flight control surfaces. We're going to go to primary control surfaces. So we need a few of the major things. We're going to start with the rudder axis because that's the first thing that I have here. So I click this, and then I click Start Scanning. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, of course, everything's moving. So let me zoom this out, and I'll put it here on my lap. Now I'm going to rotate the stick right and then left, and let's see what happens there. In fact, we'll just scan again. There we go. All right. So now it says joystick R axis Z or Z. And so we will validate that. Okay. And now if you rotate the axis here, you'll see that it lights up because that's what's happening. Next, we're going to do, let me go back here. We're going to bind your elevator axis. So it's this right here. Click that. Click Start Scanning. Elevator, you're going to, let me zoom out. Going to push it all the way forward, all the way back. That's elevator axis. That says joystick L axis Y. We'll click validate. Next, we're going to do aileron axis, which is right here. Click that, aileron. I'm going to go all the way left, all the way right. That says joystick L axis X, validate. Great. Next, we're going to go to control trimming surfaces. So I'm going to go and this is just how I like doing trim. We're going to do rudder trim right. I'm going to click this, start scanning, and if you see, it's going to be this four-way hat. I'm going to do rudder trim right. I'm just going to go click to the right. That's button 7. Rudder trim left. Going to go to the left on here. That's 9. We can do a trim reset, but I'm not going to set that right now. Then I'm going to do elevator trim. This is going to be elevator trim up, nose up. So I'm going to click this, scan it, and for nose up, I'm going to actually press down. So that's that. And now we're going to do the other one, which is elevator trim down, nose down. I'm going to go and push up, validate. Now, some people might like aileron trim, so I'm going to click aileron trim right. And for this one, if you notice, there's a small button right there. I'm going to hold that and click right at the same time. And now it says 5 plus 7. Going to validate that. Aileron trim left. We're going to do the same thing except to the other side. In this case, it's 5 plus 9. Your button numbers may be different than mine. That's okay. Now, let's see. Spoilers and all these other things, I don't think are... spoilers are not really necessary for most aircraft at this point. Once you get into that, you can figure out how you want to set your spoilers. But flaps are pretty important. So let's do flaps. We will do it this way. We're going to use increase flaps, and there should also be a decrease flaps. So if you see those two options right here, there's a whole bunch of other options, but for increase flaps, I like to use the button on the base. This one, which is called SW1 or switch 1. That's perfect. So again, that's going to be increase flaps. I'm going to click that button, and now to increase flaps, I'm going to push down. So that comes up with button 26. And then let's do decrease flaps. I'm going to push up. That's button 25. Great. A couple other things that we want to do is, and this is very important, we're going to go under power management. And we're going to set throttle. And this is where sometimes mistakes happen. Sometimes people will bind the throttle from the 0 to 100 instead of from the full range axis. So I'm going to select the throttle axis here, and that's going to be the little paddle micro switch or micro axis on the base. So I'm going to click here, that's throttle axis. And let's use this little micro paddle here. I'm going to push it all the way up and all the way down. That should be your throttle axis. That'll control all of your engines. So that's the joystick L axis, Z, or Z. So one other thing that we need is we will probably need brakes. Because after all, since this is VKB, we should probably have brakes somewhere. One thing we need to do is we need to bind toggle parking brakes, because the parking brakes will always be on every time you go into the sim. So in this case, I'm just going to choose this button right here, and I'll press it, and that will be toggle parking brakes. So we'll click that, bind F2 to toggle parking brakes, and that should be good there. Then we want to have brakes. We want to have just a button for brakes. And that will be, well, you can really choose whatever button you'd like. I'm going to use the red trigger right here, right there. That's going to be my brakes. So we'll click that, bind brakes, and there we go. Now we have some brakes to stop us. So we have most of the things we need. We have our flaps, we have our power, we have our brakes. There are tons of other things that you can bind later, but at this point, oh yeah, you know, autopilot, another thing too is to toggle autopilot. Turn your autopilot on and off. And that will be, I think it might be called toggle autopilot. Let's see. There's just a lot of options here. We can also search, so I will type in autopilot. And there we go. That's what I was looking for, was toggle disengage autopilot. So I'm gonna press that, and then press this red button right here. and that'll be toggle disengage autopilot. There's a couple other buttons I like to do with cameras, so I'm going to exit out of here, and let's see. I will expand just the camera. And this is cockpit and external view mode. I will click this one. And this I'm going to have to show you. Let me rotate this around for you so you can see a little bit better. On this side, whenever you hold it, you can use your index finger to press this button. I like using that for cockpit and external view mode, so I will bind this right here. And then we need one more thing, which should be reset. Well, we can bind a reset view, but let's just click apply and save, go back, and we'll just pick a flight somewhere. Let me choose an aircraft, probably one that you have. So we'll choose something like the X Cub. We'll use the NX Cub. And let's choose flight conditions. We'll use clear skies, and we'll also use the middle of the day, and we'll take off from someplace easy, like Orlando. Super easy to take off from, really long runways. And let's make sure that everything's working, because things are not going to work properly. I can tell you that right now. There's always going to be something that you've missed or forgotten, and that's why we'll do a quick test. So there are a few other things that we can look at. This is, of course, what I use for trimming. This is autopilot autopilot disconnect. This I will use for spoilers and for other things like tail hook if you're flying the F-18. This is the analog stick, and I use this as POV. So you use it as like a POV hat, and then if I press and hold it, I'll bind that to analog look around, but you don't really need to worry about that. So let's make sure that what we expect is what we get. So first off, I'm going to try the external view mode. So I'll push this button. Let's see what happens. Great. Now we want to test out our axes, make sure that they're bound properly. So let's move the stick to the right, move the stick to the left, move the stick back. You can see the elevators are actuating. Try the rudder. Now some of these things might be reversed, but we'll find out. All right, so remember toggle parking brake, so we're going to press this to disengage the parking brake. And now let's give it some throttle. So to give it throttle, we want to, that's a good point. Great. Our rudder is reversed. So if you noticed, I tried to turn the aircraft one direction and it went the other direction. So if that happens, which it will happen, we will just hit escape, go to our controls, and reverse our rudder axis. So we're going to go to primary control surfaces and uncheck reverse, apply and save. And now let's see what happens. All right, I'll give it some throttle again. And now we can run into the windsock. Take that, windsock. Oh, look at that. Great. So now I'm going to pull back on the stick ever so slightly, and we're going up. That's great. Now let's try the flaps. Let's see what happens. I'll push up on the flaps, and the flaps retracted. Great. Now I'll try turning right, turning left. The elevator axis, of course, works properly as I expect. And let's see. So we've got flaps working, we've got our main control surfaces working, and we can go inside and outside. Now the next thing that I would bind would be more cockpit view and external view controls, so that way you can get a better idea of how to control or how to see where you're going. But at this point, these are the basics and pretty much everything is working as intended. So I'm happy with, oh, one thing I forgot were brakes, but I'm pretty sure the brakes are working because, well, we can test it out. But yeah, so I think that's about it. Enjoy your new Gladiator joystick.